Welcome back to the Not Yet Adults podcast. This, of course, is a podcast starring my good friend Collin Geffrey and myself, Eric Zayas, as we discuss our lives and our road towards that mountain top called adulthood. Boy, oh boy, has a lot happened.
Yeah, it's been a heck of a lot. So we told people this last podcast, but in case people don't remember or they're picking up here, Eric and I made the decision 2 weeks ago that we were going to take a week off from the podcast just because we had a lot going on. And basically what it was going to be is we were going to have to sit down for like 4 or 5 hours and record like basically 3 podcasts in a row. And we just didn't want to do that. It didn't seem like it was going to be very fun, and we were going to be exhausted by the end of it. And it didn't really sync up with our schedules at all. And so we just said, hey, let's take a week off, let some of this real world stuff happen, and we'll just have a big old life update episode when we get back. Talking about all the stuff that's happened, and all sorts of stuff has happened, Eric. You and I, all a wide variety of things that have been going on. So how do you want to unpack this sort of our week off, where we did, where we went, all these things?
I think we should start it with each of us saying, like, basically what happened, and then going kind of into it. And I think you should start.
So basically, I think I said on the last episode that I was basically going out of town for a job of some sort. And basically what that was PLU, which is my alma mater. It's where Eric and I met, reached out asking me to direct a Christmas commercial. And I knew about this actually for a couple months. And my philosophy when it comes to like cool opportunities is basically don't start talking about it until you know it's for sure happening. Because I didn't want to be like that guy.
I agree with you so much because there's so many things, not so much with like job things, but with friends where they're like, oh, we should totally do this. And I get really excited about it. And I tell friends and family about it, and then it just falls apart.
Always. And it's somehow like, it's like this evil magic where somehow the second you mention it to someone else is when it falls apart.
And that would happen a lot with like relationship stuff. Like when I was dating at college, I would tell people about this person I was talking to, and as soon as I mentioned them to like friends and family, like it would just like fall apart, or like you know they wouldn't text back, or you know it wouldn't really go anywhere, and then inevitably within a week there would be that question like, oh, whatever happened to so and so, and then I'd have to tell them and like disappoint myself and them. So yeah, I definitely get like you want to hold things close to the chest until it's like for sure happening.
Well, and I don't know. Did you see La La Land when it came out?
Yes.
Do you remember that guy? It's like the first third of the movie, but that guy Emma Stone meets at the party who's like, oh yeah, a lot of good things happening for me, all sorts of doors opening. I'm really excited. Like, I just don't want to be that guy who's always like, all these things are happening for me. I'm so fortunate. Look at just all the amazing things that life is lining up, my way. I just didn't want to do that.
Because even if that's 100% true, it still can come off as like, hey, look at me, look how great things are happening for me.
Right, exactly. And I didn't want to be that, and also, as you said, I didn't really want to jinx it. But yeah, basically just kind of the short rundown of that was a couple months ago, Josh Wiersma, who we've talked about before, he's in your and I's graduating class, friend of the show,
our good boy,
good old Wiersma. He reached out a couple months ago to me saying that PLU, specifically Marcom, which is the marketing communications department there, was going to make a Christmas commercial, and that they were kind of building their team, and that my name came up as someone he had kind of thrown into the running to direct it. And initially my first thought was, okay, really cool idea. This is awesome, but I have to figure out a way to get to Tacoma, and I have to figure out time off from whatever I'm doing, because obviously I didn't have a job yet at that time. And then the follow-up from him was they're going to pay you to direct it, and they're going to pay for your travel. And I was like, I'm in. I'm there. Whatever it is, I'm done. Because that was like I would have, like so much thankfulness to Marcom for being so accommodating. But honestly, I probably would have done this for free. Just because, which is not a good thing to say on the podcast, but whatever.
Yeah, don't let people know you'll work for free.
Right, and it's not that I wasn't working hard, because I did, but it was just such a cool opportunity. Because, like, you and I are used to late night, and I love late night more than anything, but it very much has a, like, no budget, we're just going to go run out and shoot it real quick kind of style to their stuff. And this was like, we had a budget behind it where we auditioned actors and we, spent like a week at the conceptual stage, and we like rented high-end cinema lenses, and Wurzma was doing like the breakdown on our whole like basically film rig that we were shooting this thing on. It was like a proper production. And so that was really cool. So yeah, I heard about it a couple months ago. Wurzma kind of kept in touch with me as things developed. And then basically we got to the point where it was like, hey, this is happening. And I can go a little bit more into detail on that later if you want, because I could talk about this for a long time because I'm still kind of like really excited about it. But basically, 2 weeks ago, we had to have a concept locked down, and we pitched them a few concepts, and there was one in particular that it seemed like we would be able to shoot in the time we had allotted, and we went with it. And so we rented gear, and Tuesday of last week, when we're recording this, I flew in the morning. We auditioned actors that day and set up the set and made props. And then Wednesday we were shooting all day. It was a 12-hour shoot. And then Thursday was my last full day there. So we started the edit and just got all the takes that we wanted used, picked, and sort of had a first draft almost done. And then I left Friday morning. So I was in town for a full 3 days, and then I left that fourth day. But yeah, so I was in Tacoma, which was cool. You and I got to hang out, which was really fun.
Yes, that was very fun.
Yeah, which like was weird because I feel like this was like the first quote unquote like business trip of my life, like it was the first time I really had that experience. And so I wasn't really sure what the line to tread with that was in terms of how often should I, make time to see friends and do that sort of stuff. But I wanted to make sure I at least had a couple of those moments. So I crashed late night rehearsal on Thursday night. I hung out with those folks for a couple hours, which was really cool to see all of them. I didn't tell them that you were going to show up, so you showed up as a surprise at rehearsal alongside me.
Which I think that's a funny surprise because I live like the place I'm living right now is really close to campus, so it's more impressive that you were there because of how far away you live currently right now.
Sure. Well, and I mean, like everyone knew already because like I was staying with McKenna and I had already got lunch with Sam and stuff, so like no one was surprised to see me. But I think you being there was just kind of like, oh, like the gang's all here,
It was a cool little family reunion.
So we got to hang out with them for a little bit, and then you and I got to go out to dinner, which was really nice. I got to be honest with you, man. I don't remember the last time I had like that experience with someone that just like, we just sat down, we went out like together, and we set our phones on the side of the table, and we just talked for like an hour.
Like you've mentioned this before, how we talk like twice a week, or we have for the last couple weeks. But that was the first time we've seen each other face to face in months.
Yeah, literally. And like, all due respect to this show, I love doing this with you, but we barely talked about the podcast at all. Like it was, I mean, I think we talked about it for maybe like 5 minutes towards the end.
Which is good. Like you don't want to like just talk about the work you do with someone because then because that just means you don't have stuff to talk about. If you have a friend from work that you hang out with outside of work and all you do is talk about work, then you're not really having that like the full friendship experience, I don't think, at least.
No, I absolutely loved that. It was just, we just got to catch up, and like again, it's fun doing this, but like when you can't look someone in the eye and have a conversation with them that way, it is different. And so we got to talk about some stuff that we don't usually, and just kind of catch each other up, and see where we're at in life and everything, which I feel like is as good a segue as ever to say that you had a heck of a development that we've been teasing for a while. But it's official now, right? You are officially moved out of your parents' house.
I am no longer living at my parents' house as of December 4th, I think it was. It was the first week of December. It would have been at the end of November, but like things happened with like my mattress delivery got kind of confused and was delayed, but I got there the first week of December, and I was getting texts from my roommates saying like, the first couple days, because they had already moved in, of December, and they were like, "Where are you? We're partying without you. What are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh man!" And so when I finally got everything and moved out, and everything was, I took a couple trips also with like the painting I was doing. It was a bit of a process, but finally officially moved everything out on the 4th. And the first night was really interesting because I was gonna like take everything out earlier, but I ended up staying late because I wanted my last to have my last dinner with my folks, which was, I mean, it's not the last dinner with my folks, just like for a while. And then I like drove in the car and moved there, and I got there at night, it was pitch black, and moved everything in. And then as I'm heading there, one of my roommates, Cutter, messaged us in the group chat and said the power's out. This guy like he doesn't do this often, but earlier, like when I was there with some of my other roommates, he joked about like something about the internet or something. Like we'd set up internet, and he's like, "Guys, it's lightning fast. I just downloaded Fortnite in minutes or something." And they were like, "Oh, cool." And he's like, "Just kidding." So I was like, "Oh, okay."
That's evil. You should never joke about something like that. That's not okay.
We were all like, "Oh my god, it's like Google Fiber or something." But he was joking. So then when he said that, I thought, "Oh, he's just joking." And then I got there, and he was not joking. The power was out, and my other roommate Malik, who's the like the main guy in charge as far as like making sure everyone pays rent and whatnot, he had previously set it up so that the utilities transferred over from the previous owner, so there shouldn't have been a gap in utility coverage as far as electricity and heat or whatnot. But I guess there was some miscommunication with Puget Sound Energy or no, I think it was actually TPU, Tacoma Public Utilities or whatever. I'm not sure, but basically, like someone had come over to shut off the power because they didn't, they hadn't been properly communicated that that there were new tenants living there. And of course, they came over when no one was there at that time of day. So they came in. Someone came, shut the power off, and then when he called them, when everyone had finally like settled in for the day, it was already so late that the company was already closed for the day. And so Malik called them, and they said, "We can't do anything tonight, unfortunately, but we'll send someone out in the morning." So the first night there was no electricity.
So you guys still spent the night with like no heat, no electricity?
Yeah, no running water.
That's like camping almost. That's like urban camping.
It kind of was. And I was like, I think Cutter and Jory, the two other roommates, weren't there for that night. They'd crashed at another friend's house. But Malik and I, like, basically hung out, and he, like, the stove we have is a gas stove, so he used like a lighter to light up the gas stove, and he managed to make pancakes, and we were using our phones as flashlights, and because we didn't think to bring any actual flashlights, and we just we played a card game, and it was a good old time. We just hung out.
Dude, that's like a great, I mean, like, obviously it'd be nice if the first night in the house you had like power and heat, but like that's a great bonding experience of like your first night together in this house. You guys are like, just moving out, and you're on your own and kind of planting the flag and claiming this place is yours. And then suddenly, like, you have to make pancakes by like phone flashlight. I don't know why. I love the imagery of that so much.
I would have liked to have been able to take a nice hot shower. But then the next day, the guy came, turned the power back on. It was all good. Everything worked out. It was just, one last little hurdle as far as the settling in process. And then the next day, the next like week after that, I like slowly moved in. Well, not slowly. At a decent pace, I should say. I moved in everything. I had brought it into the garage, into the actual room, and actually set up my room. I still haven't set up my desk because for a while I missed the peg pieces required to put at my desk. So right now I have my computer and everything like connected to gonna be my TV, and so I have kind of my computer stuff spread out across the bedroom floor. But soon I just got the pegs back, so soon I'm gonna set up the desk and everything's gonna be fully settled in.
So big question for you. I'll put you on the spot right off the bat. Does it feel like home yet?
Mostly, I'd say. It's still not fully finished setting everything up, and like I'm still kind of like adjusting to this new dynamic of the roommates and like the new route to work and stuff like that. But it's getting there. I think by the end of this month I'll feel like it's fully home. But right now it just feels like it's kind of like the first month at PLU when I was living in the dorm. I was like, this is alien and different, and I'm like learning that I'm adjusting to new things. Like today I just did laundry for the first time, and so I'm still working on settling in, but I'm getting there.
What has your relationship with your folks been like since you moved out?
It's been a little bit strained, which is interesting to say because my relationship with the parents has always been great. And I did this thing, and I didn't tell you this at dinner, but I did this thing when I moved out to PLU where I made a goal of myself to call my mom and dad every night like, as for as long as I could, and I would just chat and say what's up. And usually the conversations would be really short and just be like, hey, how's it going? Is anything good? Okay.
Dude, if I was your mom and dad, I would have hung up after like the second or third time you called every night in a row. I'd be like, go live your life, kid. Stop calling me all the time.
But I think they like appreciate that I got used to that.
Oh no, I'm sure they did. Yeah.
Yeah, and then when I moved back in, I obviously didn't do that because I saw them every day. And now that I moved out, it wasn't even a conscious decision. I just chose like not to do that because I felt like I was as nice of a thing it was to like keep in contact with my folks and give them constant updates on what I was doing. It was still kind of like it kind of further cemented the idea that while I was living at POU, I was still not fully on my own, because while you're moved in, like you're still like being supported by your parents, and it's like school's only a temporary thing. And I knew like after school's done, I was gonna move back in with them. But since I moved out, because I don't know, it's hard to explain, but basically I just felt that if I kept up that tradition of like calling them every night, that it would still feel like I was still living with them. You know what I mean?
Well, and I don't want to speak for you, but I'd imagine it's sort of like glancing over your left shoulder the whole time, like kind of looking back and like sort of keeping one foot in that part of your life of living with them. And like, it's not that you should never talk to them, of course you should, but calling them every night is like you need to focus on kind of planting your roots where you are now, as opposed to constantly calling them or staying in touch.
Yeah, and it's not like I'm like distancing myself from my parents because of any negative reason. Not at all. It's I love my parents, but they like called me a couple like after the first couple nights, and were basically like, hey, are you doing okay? We haven't heard from you in a while, and it only been a couple days, and it like so I talked to them, and we had dinner together recently, and I basically said like, it's I'm not gonna be able to like come here once a week. Also, something I forgot to mention, when I was living at POU, I was like spending the night at my parents' house like once a week on the weekends. So yeah, I was just constantly like making trips home, and so it felt like I was still like even though I was going to school, it felt like the school thing. I don't know. Even though I like had all my stuff moved out of my place and into like my dorm at PLU, it still felt like I was living with my parents, which is something I needed when I was at PLU, because it was the first time away and it was like a scary new experience. So I needed that comfort. But now that I'm like ready to be living on my own, I need it to feel like I'm really on my own. You know what I mean?
Well, and it's the joke of like, especially like for a first year student at college, if like I'm an adult now, I'm independent. It's like, okay, but you get all your food from the student store, and what would happen if your parents stopped helping you with tuition? Like you're quote unquote an adult, but not really. I mean, they call it a college kid for a reason. And so now, I mean, you're out on your own. You are paying your own rent. You are working your own job. You have your own car. Like you're doing it, man. You're there. And so no, I mean, I think it depends on the family and the kid and all that. But I think just calling or getting in touch with them once a week, whether that's dinner or a movie or just hanging out around their place for a little bit or whatever. I think once a week's probably a fine amount of time. Maybe text or call a little bit more often, but maybe just see them once a week since you're not that far away.
When I met with them for dinner, I like my mom was basically saying, hey, you should still like come in here and spend the night once a week. And I said to her like, I'm not gonna do that. And I felt bad doing that, because I felt like she thought something negatively about my relationship with her, but we basically came to the conclusion that like I would have dinner with them and like at least once a month, because that still, I just need that detachment, you know what I mean? Like I need to really feel like I'm left the nest, and if I constantly come back to the nest once a week, then I really haven't left, you know what I mean?
No, I completely agree. And I think that's healthy. And I think even if it maybe is difficult for them, I'm sure it's difficult for them. They know that that's what's best for you and that that's what you need right now. And so I think it's going to be just finding that balance as time goes on. And of course the funny part of this show, or the irony of this show, is I'm speaking on something that I have yet to go through. And so I may not have any idea what I'm talking about. As a matter of fact, I know for a fact I have no idea what I'm talking about. But no, honestly, man, I think it's just gonna be you're just gonna find that kind of give and take as time goes on of how often is too much, how often is not often enough. I think it's gonna work out. I really do. So this is something you and I haven't talked about, but I feel like on paper when we started this podcast, your and I's short term goals were sort of the same. Of sort of move out, get a full time job, kind of be more independent, and you are definitely ahead of the curve, at least compared to me. I feel like you're hitting those milestones a little bit quicker. So I'm just kind of curious, looking forward over the next year or two. I mean, what are some long term goals that you have personally? Because like you're moved out, man. You freaking did it. You're in your own house.
Real quick, just to speak to being ahead of the curve, so to speak, I feel like when it comes to like where we live, like, yeah, I moved out first, sure, but I believe that you're ahead of the curve as far as finding a new job, which is a huge part of what our like short-term goals were, because I'm still working at the same place and you've got a new job.
Which is funny because this is going to turn into like a compliment contest of like, yeah, well, thank you, but this is like.
Well, thank you, but you are better.
Oh well, I wouldn't have been able to do it if it weren't for that. Anyway. Yeah, I mean I don't know. I feel like you could look at it either way. I know that like your current job isn't something that you necessarily want to do long term, but I also feel like it's not the worst thing in the world, and you've found it. You found a way to make it work so that you could still move out without having to find a quote unquote grown up or real job. You know what I mean? Like you're still working at your current place and you have a great relationship with the people there, and you're moved out and you're kind of self-sustaining now, and I just have so much respect for that, considering I still live in my parents' basement.
As far as like finding a new job, it's gonna be difficult because a lot of the jobs I would be getting to would be entry level, which even with a bachelor's degree still only allows me like so much to make per hour. So like I don't think I'll be able to realistically get a new job that's entry level that'd be anything more than $12 per hour, which is less than what I'm making at Lowe's, but only because I've been working at Lowe's for like 6+ years.
Yeah, and like I don't want to hijack it from you, but I feel like that's kind of a good dovetail with my bullet point, which obviously we kind of touched on there. But while I was in Tacoma, I got a job offer from somewhere that I had actually interviewed with a couple months ago, and I kind of followed up every now and again, but just kind of figured that it wasn't going to happen just because I hadn't heard anything in a long time. And then the Monday before I left, I got a call from the hiring manager there, and he said, "Hey, can you give me phone numbers for your references? You listed emails. I need phone numbers, basically." And I sent that to him within the hour, and I got a text from Anna, who works on late night. She was our student media advisor.
Shout out to Anna.
Shout out to Anna. She's wonderful. I think she listens to the podcast as well, which is cool. But yeah, she sent me a text saying that he had called her like this all happened within like a 2-hour span, so it was fast. But that he had just called her, she left a great recommendation, and that it sounded like that we're gonna move forward. And so I didn't really think too much on it. I knew that was good, but I didn't really know how good. And then Tuesday, I got in Tacoma Tuesday morning, and we auditioned actors from like 9 a.m. to noon. And then right after we finished our last audition, I checked my phone. It was on silent, and I saw I had missed a voicemail from the hiring manager. And so I called him right back. I left a message for him, and then he called me about 10 minutes later, and luckily my phone was still on. And they officially offered me the job. So I don't want to say the company or the position quite yet, just because I haven't actually started. And again, like I don't want to be like, man, this is so great, man, everything's working out for me. And then they're like, oh, sorry, we were just like joshing you. But yeah, so I have my orientation tomorrow.
That's so exciting, dude.
It is, yeah, I'm really excited, man. And again, like to your point, it is an entry level job. The pay is not great. It is not full time. It's going to be like 25 hours a week, so it's not going to be enough to move out.
But it's a great start, and it's like because you're not moved out, you don't like need, that much money. You know what I mean? So it's like I think it's a great starting point. And right now, like I think a good goal for both of us would be to get experience. And you're definitely getting a really good experience. I'm very excited for you.
I really hope so, man, and I appreciate that. And like, I don't want to speak for the company. I know I'm like being very vague and like kind of tiptoeing around stuff. It's not, if you're not local, you haven't heard of it. So it's like, no one's going to be like, oh, wow, you got a job at Apple. Like, it's not Apple.
It's Google.
It's Google. Yeah. Well, and important thing to note too, it is local. So I'm not moving away. I'm still living with my folks and all that. My understanding of the position is it's not going to be a long-term thing. It's almost like a probationary position kind of, where like they start you off here in a position that exposes you to a lot of departments and a lot of different roles in a very short period. And then when they find something that you do really well at, they move you up to full-time or more hours in that position. And so I'm not too worried about the fact that the pay is not that great and the hours aren't full-time, because my understanding is once I really kind of find a groove for myself in a particular department or a particular job, they'll move me up to that. So yeah, man, it's all very exciting. I haven't even had orientation yet, so we'll see. I have that tomorrow. So next episode, I might be able to talk about that a little bit more. And then I'll figure out my hours and I meet my boss for the first time and all that, man. So we'll see. I'm really excited. I think it's gonna be good.
Dude, that is so awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Thanks. You've been really supportive over this whole thing. And I just found out, I think the day before you and I got dinner. No, I guess it would have been 2 days before you and I got dinner. So you were, I think, the second person I told. I didn't tell my parents till I got back. So yeah, so we'll see. I'll keep people in the loop, but for now, I'm just really excited, man. Just really excited to see what happens.
Yeah, we have been up to no good.
Well, all sorts of good, really. It's really all good things. It's not like anyone had a relative pass away or like something sad or something. It's all been really good stuff.
I don't know why the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air theme immediately was like, hey, you should say this.
When a couple of kids who are up to no good starting causing trouble I don't know. We'll see. Nothing but bright things on the horizon for us. There's all sorts of places to go. We had, we got to hang out this week. You moved out. I'm starting a new job. It's very, very big time for both of us, and I'm very excited. Well, folks, this has been another episode of the Not Yet Adults podcast. Great things happening for both Eric and myself. Humble brag, no big deal. We're all sorts of just amazing avenues opening up for us. Like
we're living the big time.
Absolutely. So yeah, we'll keep you all updated. Obviously, Rome wasn't built in a day, but it's been a very big past couple weeks for the both of us. And remember that this, of course, is the Not Yet Adults podcast, which comes to you every Monday and Friday, except for last week, at 9 a.m. Pacific time, right here on just the YouTubes and the SoundClouds and the iTunes and Google Plays, all sorts of places you can find this podcast. It's quite diverse. We're also across the social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at Not Yet Adults, as well as on our own subreddit, r/NotYetAdults, which you should check out if you have a second. If you have even more time and you want to help out this podcast, head on over to Apple Podcasts or iTunes if you're on iOS. Leave us a rating and review there. It really just takes a couple minutes out of your day, but it is an enormous help to this podcast because it helps more people find the show, which is awesome because we put a lot of work into this and we'd love to share it with even more people. We'll be back this coming Monday, because this is going to be a Friday episode, at 9 a.m. Pacific time, talking about something new, and we're very much looking forward to it. So thanks for listening, and until next time, this has been Not Yet Adults.
Bye-bye.